So, we're getting back into the world of Arath. Last session, we made our character Dagar, and it's kind of like a rogue, kind of like thiefly kind of character. And we decided on what's their main quest line. They're going to the monastery to retrieve the Naga scrolls. There's this sorcerer called Ardor who previously has enslaved Dagar, and is currently at the monastery. Dagar has already taken a few days, has journeyed to there on foot, and the first thing he finds in this area of the map is this weapon smuggler called Theo. So is a solitary hermit who also smuggles weapons, and Theo wants us to find a totem of his that we are not sure what it does, but if we do that for him, he will in return give us something special, a special weapon of some kind. We don't know yet what it is, and we're leaving that up to interpretation for now. Again, we have the per hex thing, so d6 plus hexes. We've already explored one hex, so we wake up the next morning on day 2, and we basically kind of look out amongst the plains. We're not sure exactly where to go to get to the monastery, and we're not sure where to go to get the totem. So we might as well just start exploring, perhaps just headed towards the east direction. So we're going towards the northeast. Firstly, let's roll for the weather for today. Okay, I believe we said it was summer weather, so let's roll for the weather. 4 is... oh great. It went from a heat wave to a thunderstorm. So a sudden storm brings heavy rain and lightning. -1 to foraging, -1 to getting lost. So we are going to try to get out of this hex for the moment. So on a 1 to 2, we're lost on a d6. So let's actually start rolling that. That's the first roll of the session. Are we gonna be lost? Okay, 6. So 6 minus 1 is 5. That is not a 1 to 2. We are fine. Day 2. Thunderstorm. So Dagar emerges from the cave. It's starting to rain very, very heavily. There's lightning and thunder overhead. And he still has to go through the plains. So he does what he has to do, and he starts going towards the northeast. Fortunately, he is not lost, even despite the thunderstorm. I should actually use this character sheet that I drew up. So Dagar only has 2 rations left. He's gonna have to forage at some point, but not right now. Right now, we want to get closer to our goal. So we're able to get to the northeast. Let's see. Let's roll for a point of interest if there is any. So 1 to 4, there's nothing, and a 5 to 6, we roll for what it is. So we got a 3, which means no point of interest, and we roll for an encounter as well. On a 5 to 6, there's an encounter. So on a 1, there is no encounter on day 2. So we're moving through, and we're going towards this direction over here. However, we still have to roll for whether we find anything that might give us a clue as to where the monastery is. So on a 7 plus, we do get to the monastery. So if I roll a 6 right now, we are able to actually find the monastery amongst the plains. Oh wow, okay. That's quick. So I'm gonna write this as B. So Dagar actually, on day 2, stumbles across what seems to be the monastery described to him previously. So that's actually pretty good luck. We don't know much about this monastery yet, other than that Ardor is supposedly inside it, and that it contains the scrolls. But it isn't too much of a stretch to say that we found it at this point, because, as has been established earlier, Dagar has been traveling for several days to get to this point. So, finding the monastery now, he might be able to actually get the scrolls. So the thread was to find the monastery containing the Naga scrolls. Now that we've actually found the monastery, we need to actually retrieve them. So I'm actually gonna erase this out and get the Naga scrolls is now our next thread, essentially. We also know that Ardor is within this monastery. I would like to know a few more details about this monastery though. Like, as we're headed through in this thunderstorm, we just kind of stumble across it. We don't really have any details on what it's like. I'm gonna roll a few times on the insight into people, places, and things. 16 gives us angry. Okay. Forbidden. Okay, maybe one more roll. 55. Opulent. Okay, so the description of this monastery: angry, forbidden, and opulent. The way I'm imagining it right now is that we find this temple of sorts, this monastery, and it's kind of like jutting out of the ground. It's kind of in the rain, kind of strikes an imposing kind of figure. And across the front face of this monastery is what appears to be an open face. So I'm thinking of like literal eyes, maybe something looking like a skull, and an open mouth leading into the actual monastery. And of course, this monastery looks somewhat angry. I'm thinking gems across the top, gems maybe embedded within the eyeballs. There are runes inscribed here and there on the temple. I'm imagining this kind of monument that is easy to miss because it's small, but once you see it, you can't unsee it, if that makes sense, because it's so striking. My immediate thought is that it descends into some kind of dungeon, especially given that it's, a forbidden area. That's what I'm thinking of at the moment, at least. We are able to see this kind of strange looking temple from far off, and it's kind of like raining like crazy, right? So I'm imagining there's like a pitter patter, occasional lightning and thunder, kind of like striking the ground and also onto the temple itself. As we approach, do we see anybody on the outside? I'm actually gonna say that that's no, because we don't actually get any encounters of any sort. We also didn't get a point of interest. I think we can actually just hit in. So I think that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to hit into this dungeon and see what we can find. Degar approaches this temple and he opens the door. As he opens the door, what does he see inside? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start using the dungeon crawling rules in Kalarath. Upon discovery of a dungeon, roll on the following tables to proceed. The nature of the location, the size of the location, etc., etc. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna roll on this, and if I get temple, I'm just gonna re-roll because we already know that it's a temple leading to something. So I got one, which is city ruins. Okay, that's interesting. So what this is telling me is that this monastery is an entrance into a larger area, not just a dungeon, but a city ruins, like a lost civilization beneath the ground. And I got a 4, which means it's large, 7 areas. So determining dungeon areas, based on the size, create a dice pool of d6s, one for each area. For example, for a large location, you will have 7d6. These areas don't necessarily represent individual rooms. An area could be a floor, a room, a large cavern, a section of corridors. It's up to you. Each area will be defined by a certain number, which will indicate the table to roll on for the contents. For solo play, you essentially draw dice around your initial throw to determine the area's shape and how many passages or connections you'll have to go through, and you re-roll the dice as you're going through. So it doesn't matter so much what's on the dice, more the location of it. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna try to get some dice here. Doesn't have to be d6s, the main thing is where it falls on the map, right? Okay, here we go. So let's actually roll this up and see what we get. I'm essentially going to follow the procedure in here, and the position of dice that are relatively close to each other are directly connected, while further dice may require passages or stairs or additional areas. So I'm just gonna roll this across and see what we get. Okay, that goes here, that goes here. Just try and arrange it in a way that makes sense. These are pretty close together. So I'm just gonna start drawing out the area here. Okay, so that leads to there. That leads to there. So this seems to lead to this separate section here, like so. And this seems to link to all of these because it seems close enough. So something like this. Alright, so we got at least a dungeon layout. So we're entering in from the left here. Let's start rolling up and see what happens. I got a 2, which is a hazard, obstacle, or trap. Okay. Uh, okay, that could be bad. Degar could just immediately die. Let's see what a trap actually is. As Degar steps into this temple and opens the door, he immediately notices that something is wrong. Let's see. Oh, it's a tripwire alarm. Okay, So traps are set off on a 1 to 3 on a d6 when entering or passing through the area. Now, I know that Dagar is on high alert, and we also know that Dagar gets advantage when hiding or sneaking. So I'm actually going to say that the trap is only set off on a 1 to 2 on a d6 instead of 1 to 3, because that makes sense, given Dagar's character. As Dagar is stepping into the room, does he notice that there's a tripwire and just set it off? So on a 1 to 2, he sets off the tripwire. Okay, got 4. So Dagar notices that there is a tripwire there as he's entering in, kind of concealed, but because of the dust kind of settling down around like the floors and the walls, he can see like a thin sliver of what seems to be dust in the middle of the air, and that's a telltale sign of some kind of tripwire. So that's bad. So this place is currently occupied. And as he peers deeper into the room, kind of getting his eyes kind of adjusted, he notices that, yeah, there is kind of like some kind of trap door in the floor that will allow him to get deeper underground, as it were. So I'm gonna kind of like indicate that by drawing it like this. And he opens the trapdoor carefully and starts descending down a long series of steps. As he descends down the long series of steps, he notes the air around him. I'm assuming it's musky, it's dirty, but is there anything else we can find out about this area as we're kind of going through? Let's just roll. 26. Menacing. So there's this almost choking atmosphere, this kind of feeling that at any point something may happen. The shadows around him seem to almost like dance, and he feels like he's getting paranoid, but maybe for good reason. He did see the tripwire. And he keeps descending down into what seems to be a ruined city of some kind. It's huge. There's a ton of these kind of little buildings kind of surrounding these passageways, and he can see a path through them. Like a lot of these buildings are kind of destroyed or, like filled with rubble. But he can see that there are some areas that are slightly more in shape, and that there is definitely some kind of path leading through this entire ruined city. At the end of his vision, he can even see that there is what seems to be some kind of town square, and it leads off into different areas. So this is very interesting to him. So he's gonna go down into what is in the initial section here, and let's see what he finds. 6. A special room or boss. Okay. So I don't think we're gonna find Ardor immediately right off the bat. So I think it's a special kind of room. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna leave it up to the dice. So on a 1 to 3, this place is essentially a special room, but it doesn't have the boss in it or anything like that. Yes. I got a 4. Okay. The dice have spoken. So I got 4. That's interesting. Okay. So what Dagar sees from afar is what seems to be some kind of plaza. And he can't see what's inside because this plaza is essentially closed off. Unlike a lot of the other buildings around, it is not ruined per se. It's just kind of like closed off and it's still intact. So he finds this very suspicious. He's going up and he's kind of coming into the area, but he's doing it sneakily. So he's trying to hide and sneak as he comes into the area. So what this place actually is an ancient burial room containing a warlord from days long gone by, and d6 of his retainers, clothes in tatters, mail rusted to stains, but still holding weapons in their skeletal fingers. So I think I know what Ardor is. I think Ardor is a necromancer of some kind. We're gonna start writing that down on our characters list. So Ardor the necromancer. And I think what he's done is he's resurrected this warlord to protect his interests, basically, and protect the scrolls. So how many retainers are there? There is only one. So there's a warlord and there's a retainer, which is good for us. Now, Dagar is kind of sneaking in. Is he able to do so? So we get advantage on that. So 3d6, take the 2 higher. 6, 5, that's an 11, plus our agility, that's definitely a success. As Dagar is kind of walking in and sneaking in, he notices the Warlord and the Retainer far before they notice him. So he's able to attack first if need be, but he's also able to get a closer look at this Warlord. The Warlord has ancient plate, a rune-carved sword, and looks to be very menacing. The Retainer just looks like a regular soldier. Around the room, there seems to be all sorts of skeletons of perhaps previous Retainers. The room also contains an ornate box with a bunch of herbs and uses, but Dagar doesn't know that, so we're not going to roll that up yet. But Dagar does see the box. He doesn't know what's inside, and it could possibly be the scrolls. It doesn't necessarily have to be the herbs, right? But Dagar is not sure. In order to get to the box, he will have to contend with the Warlord and the Retainer. So, what's he gonna do? Oh, there's actually additional information. The Warlord's rune-carved blade is also a treasure that you can get. On a critical hit, there is a 2 in 6 chance of automatically killing any opponent. Okay, that seems bad for us. I guess that's only if we're actually using it, because the special on here says, on a critical hit, the sword forces an automatic roll on the death and wounding table. But that's still very bad. And the HP is 5d6, 20 by default. I don't think this is a good situation for us. I think Dagar is gonna go for it, but he needs some kind of plan. Dagar kind of looks around the room, and there's a bunch of mail, there's a bunch of weapons, there's a bunch of skeletons, there's not much he can use. Is he able to get around to the box and take it without essentially contending with the Warlord and the Retainer? Like, are the Warlord and Retainer guarding the box specifically? I'm gonna ask this as a yes-no question. Yes, but actually, that's a 4. So they are keeping an eye on it, but it's mainly the Retainer. The Warlord doesn't seem too concerned. I think if we're able to sneak past the Retainer and take the box, we don't need to fight these guys. I think Dagar is going to try to do that. So, Dagar is going to do an agility check, and he's going to add 2 to it. And if he passes an 8, he's going to be able to get to the box and be able to get out of there. So that's a 9 plus 2. That's definitely a success. Dagar is able to get to the ornate box and able to pick it up and able to leave the area without alerting the Warlord and the Retainer. Dagar definitely wants that sword, but he's not going to risk it at the moment. As he's stepping out of the burial room, hoping that they didn't notice that the box is already taken, he's going to take a quick peek inside. Is it the scrolls? So I'm going to ask that as a 50-50. Or is it just herbs, as it says here? So is it the scrolls that he's looking for? I got a 6. So as Dagar kind of peers in, he sees these really old looking runic kind of scrolls, yellowed from age and kind of tattered in certain places, but they match the description. I'm imagining these scrolls as kind of blood covered, maybe even written with blood. And he realizes that what he just took were the Nagha scrolls. The box itself already is worth like 60 silver, but the scrolls are worth much more. So, that being said, I think there's a high chance that since that Retainer was guarding the boxes, and the fact that there's a tripwire, there's a high chance that they will have already figured out that the scrolls are gone. Let me ask that as a likely question and take the higher one. So that's a yes. There's a sudden bellowing sound from inside the burial chamber as the Retainer notices what has happened and alerts the Warlord, and they start looking around. They start seeing tracks. They start seeing that the floor has been stepped on, the soil has been disturbed, and they start heading for the door. And Dagar is gonna have to book it right now. So he hasn't explored any of these other places yet. He's gonna try to escape right now, given that he's already gotten what he wanted. So we'll see if he's able to do that. So that's gonna be a 2d6, add 2 to it, and trying to be an 8. Oh! That's double 6s. So that's a critical success. Dagar is actually able to get out of there quickly enough without them even being able to spot him. So they weren't able to get his face. He's able to come out of the trapdoor, past the tripwire, and exit the monastery with the scrolls in his hand. He's trembling. He's like incredibly overcome with emotion because this is essentially his quest. He's essentially retrieved this ancient, forbidden kind of object, but now he still has to deal with Ardor. So the problem is that now Ardor is going to be coming after him. As Dagar kind of steps out of the temple, he hears this kind of horrible sound emanating from within the depths of it. And he kind of laughs under his breath as he realizes that his arch nemesis Ardor has realized what has happened. And Dagar steals off in the middle of the night under the thunderstorm. I wasn't expecting to get the scrolls that quickly, but we still don't know what the scrolls actually do. Let's actually see. We actually got the scrolls very early on. We still haven't dealt with the main issue of Ardor. So given that these are scrolls that a lot of people are looking for, I'm gonna say, yeah, I think I'm gonna say that it's going to be either a level 3 or a level 4 scroll. So let's roll for that. So on a 1 to 3, it's a level 3 scroll. On a 4 to 6 is a level 4 scroll. A level 5 scroll is something insane, so we're not gonna go there. But let's see. Okay, it's a level 4 scroll of some kind. And let's see what the pact is of. 4, Illumination. Okay. I'm actually going to roll one more time because I think that it wouldn't make sense for these scrolls to be of illumination. Would it? I don't know. I feel like, given the fact that they are covered in blood like I described, I'm gonna roll one more time and see which one makes more sense. So I'm gonna roll again, and I got a 4 again. Okay, it really wants me to choose Illumination. Never mind. We're sticking with it. Illumination. I think the next thing that we have to do is we actually have to face down Ardor, which is gonna be pretty hard to do actually. But we'll deal with that next time. And we were able to actually level up because each session you get 1 XP, and the amount of XP to get to a level is, well, the level itself. So like if you want to get from level 1 to level 2, you need 2 XP. To get from level 2 to level 3, you need 3 more XP, and so on and so forth. So we've actually leveled up to level 2. So let's actually do that right now, before we end off. Leveling up provides the following benefits. Players may select only one of these 2 advancements. We could put a 1 into any stat, or we could roll 6d6 versus the current HP, and if we roll higher, we get d6 HP. I think we're gonna go for more HP. We have very little of it, so 6d6 versus current HP. I don't think I even need to roll, because even if I get 1 for everything, I'm still gonna get higher than this. So I'm just gonna add d6 HP to my total, and let's see. Oh, 2. Well, it's something at least. Yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll join me for the next session where we'll try to deal with the sorcerer, or, well, the necromancer, now that we know what Ardor actually does. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time. Bye!